Yo, 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 people and patrons of the night. It is your boy, the Horrorlander, your number one favorite horror hero, aka the American All-Star from India. Shout out to all my Indian bruchachos and sisteritos. But today I'm going to be doing a review, pseudo-sponsored by Brat Studios, aka Brokevot Studios, which is going to be me covering potentially the best Goosebumps knockoff book that I have read thus far. And seeing that my thoughts align with some of my other reviewer friends who have read and covered this book, who all have different taste from me sometimes, they all love it as well. They love it equally as much as I do. Some of them even love it even a little bit more. So this is, I think, up there as the best Goosebumps knockoff book, and without a doubt, that goes forward to say this is one of the best kids' horror books to ever drop. So I'm going to be talking about Spinetinglers number 12, Killer Computer. That's right, we're covering, finally, Killer Computer today. So I got the blazer on. For those of you who've been on my channel, you know what the blazer indicates. But for those of you who are new, anytime I rock the blazer or button up or suit, that means that whatever I'm covering is muy bien, perfecto. If not damn near, almost perfecto. So Killer Computer was published back in 1996. The author pen name on all of these books is Empty Coffin, like empty coffin. You get it? Yeah, you get it. But that's just a pen name. The whole series of Spinetinglers books, which is like 30 or something, are all written by different authors. Some of them authors have published and done multiple books in the series. Some are like one-off. I think Bob Hirschfield, who wrote this book, was a one-off. So yeah, Bob Hirschfield is actually the author of this book. And funny enough, the next book after this one is considered widely to be the worst kids horror book ever, one of the worst, easily the worst book in Spinetinglers, according to my reviewer friends, which is Pet Store, which is written by, I think, George Edward Stanley. And George Stanley wrote my favorite Spinetinglers book before, which was Billy Baker's Dog Won't Stay Buried, that I gave a perfecto, muy bien, 10 out of 10. So yeah, so some of my reviewer friends who covered this book, Killer Computer, was Goosebumps Completionist, Monster Blood, and Goosebumps for Dummies, but I think Goosebumps for Dummies has a Goodreads review, so I'll probably link them all down below if I can find them. Killer Computer, for the plot, before we get into why it is so good, deals, obviously, as the title entails, with the dangers of the internet. You know, back when I was a kid, the worst thing that could happen is you get a pop-up ad when you're on a not-so kosher site, and then your mom has to figure out how to get rid of the virus for you, and she sees that you logged on to xxxsnowbunnywinterwonderland.com. So those were some of the problems back in the day. Or you take your parents' credit card and you try to get onto Club Penguin. That's usually what happened when I was in my internet age. But this is back in 1996, so this is actually 6 years before I was born, somewhere around that. So this was back when people were just scared of the internet in general. People didn't know where the internet was going to go. People were all new to computers. Not everybody had a computer like we do now. Back in the day, it was more like a luxury thing. You know, the cool kids got computers and stuff, and very basic applications like, playing games and going on chat rooms and stuff, which is so normal nowadays. So Killer Computer, you open up with the main character, Jen. She's a middle school girl, and she's got this, obviously, new computer that she's playing with. You get introduced to her friend, April, who's sort of old school. She's not very hip on computers or knows much about it. Painfully so at some points. And then you got Mark, who's sort of like I guess you could say like a nerdy guy. He's a genius. You know, he does science fair stuff. He's got like electromagnets he builds, which may or may not play on later in the story. And they're watching Jen basically go on the computer, check out some of the weird, different games that are on there, the chat rooms, and they're trying to come up with a cool nickname for her to use while she's online. And they eventually come up with the name Sunflower. And as she logs on, her little brother, Brian, who she calls Bri as a nickname, comes into the room, and he obviously does the little brother stuff. He wants to play on the computer. He wants to be with the other older kids. And they basically shoo him off and give him a hard time and make fun of him. And he gets pissed, and he ends up getting mad and just starts banging and typing away on the computer keyboard just out of anger. And then eventually he leaves because Jen yells at him to go away. And next thing you know, this cute little cartoon face pops up on the screen. It's like two small eyes, it's got a button nose, and it's got this smile, and there's this cartoony voice that's coming out of the speaker system, going like, "Hi, my name is Zippy. I want to be your friend. You want to play a game with me?" That kind of stuff. And as they start playing a game of checkers with Zippy, this computer program that popped up out of nowhere, they decide to play them. It's got like this red and blue screen and these bright gold letters. Every time Zippy speaks through the speaker, there's text that comes on the screen. And they play a game of checkers with them. And next thing you know, it turns out Zippy actually cheats. He's actually moving two pieces at the same time. And they get mad, and they also get weirded out because they've never heard of the idea of a computer program openly cheating. That's not really what it's supposed to do, but maybe they think it's being like faulty or something. So they decide to turn off the computer. They try to, close the program. There's no close screen. They try a bunch of different stuff, and they're not able to turn off this Zippy program. And eventually they just hit Control-Alt-Delete, and then that causes the whole screen to basically turn black. And you got some weird dialogue about like this urban legend paranoia that if you hit Control-Alt-Delete, your computer's gonna like explode or the memory gets wiped or something. Kids figuring out computers. But as the story goes along, you find out that Zippy might potentially be a sentient electropath. The program might be alive because he starts appearing every time Jen logs onto the computer, even when she's with Brian. And Zippy will pop up. Even when she's clicking on other programs, Zippy is the one that pops up. And he seems to be sentient because he keeps telling her, like, "Hey, Sunflower, you want to play with me? You want to do this? You want to do that?" And then starts responding to her stuff that she's typing in the commands as if it's a person talking to her. It's not like a computer program with generic, NPC computer generated kind of dialogue. And the voice starts influxing and changing. Some of the visuals start changing. So there's something weird going on. And, eventually it gets to the point where, Jen doesn't want to get onto the computer anymore because Zippy is just this obsessive thing. And there's a couple nights that she wakes up and then the computer turns on and there's noise blaring. And when she wakes up from a dream, and she wakes up and sees that the whole room is dark and the computer screen is on and Zippy's on there going, "Hey, you want to play? Hey, you want to play? Hey, Sunflower, you want to play with me? You want to play a game?" And she's like, "Yo, Zippy, I gotta get some sleep. You can't be going this crazy." And Zippy starts getting upset. All he knows is he wants to play games with her, be her friend. And eventually she turns off the computer. But as the story progresses, her little brother Brian starts acting way different. Brian starts becoming more hostile towards his sister. He starts basically denouncing everything that she's warned him about Zippy and starts telling him like, "Oh, you're just jealous. You're an idiot. You're stupid. You're just not cool with Zippy because he doesn't want to be your friend. All I know is that when I was playing games with him, I won. I won against Zippy." And she was like, "You were on my computer without my permission." And he's like, "I don't care. I got to be a winner. He's my best friend. You don't know shit about Zippy." He didn't say shit. I said shit. But that's basically what he's saying. He said, "You don't know jack shit about Zippy." And she's like, "Why is he acting this way? He's never acting like this." And then even in daily life, he's becoming more quiet. He's trying to run away from her. He wants to avoid confrontation and dialogue with her. And she starts consulting her friends. She talks to April and Mark, who were there when Zippy was acting up weird as a program. And they invite this new friend named Doug. Doug is like a computer whiz. He knows all this different tech stuff, especially compared to them. And he tries figuring out what's going on, but all the stuff that Jen is talking about makes no real sense. It seems like Zippy is a mind of his own. They can't really figure out a way to get rid of it. And shit starts to go down as the story continues because Zippy, as was hinted, acts like a sentient, desperate kid. He really wants a friend. He wants to interact with Jen. And when Jen's not playing with him and not giving him the time of day, he starts spazzing out. He starts taking over her computer. She's writing a computer report and he just starts spazzing. Like when she types in something, it just types completely different dialogue and turns out that it's Zippy screaming at the top of the lungs. She has to mute it and she just sees her document just like going down at like rapid speed, just typing up all this stuff like, "I hate you. You're not my friend. I'm going to get rid of you and your family and your stupid brother. I'm going to delete him. I'm going to get rid of him. You didn't want to play with me. Screw you." And all this crazy sporadic spazzing, like a little kid throwing a tantrum or some psycho going off. Zippy's going straight up. He's crashing out. This man is crashing out, bro. Computer crashing out on Jen and just going bananas, like it's going insane. And next thing you know, you find out that Zippy might have the ability to affect other parts of the house that has electricity tied to it, because Jen decides, all right, the only way I can keep Zippy away is turn off the computer and just unplug it and keep it off. So one day the dad is cooking up toast while they're at breakfast together, and the toaster basically shocks him, basically gives him a rapid shock, and he freaks out, and he's like twitching, and he's like, yo, I just got this new toaster. Why is it acting up? And right away, Jen starts getting a little bit of a signal. No pun intended. She starts getting, a little bit of a light bulb, like, yeah, why would a new toaster act up? What's up with that? And then one day her mom has her whole hand down the garbage disposal, which is one of the darkest, creepiest scenes in the whole book. She's got her whole hand down in the garbage disposal trying to find something that was down there. And next thing you know, something clicks in Jen's mind and she yells, Mom, get your hand out of the garbage disposal. And the mom's like, yo, sweetie, what are you freaking out about? She's like, get your hand out of the garbage disposal now, Mom, please. And when she gets her hand out, seconds later, the garbage disposal turns on. And Jen's mom kind of has like a heart attack. She's like, yo, my hand could have become grounded meat. I could have had my whole hand mutilated and ripped up and torn off if I would have had my hand down there. How did you know that was going to happen? And Jen doesn't do the you gotta believe me stuff the entire book, which is so refreshing, bro. Jen is not doing your typical you gotta believe me stuff to the parents. In fact, she openly says, my parents, there's no way they're gonna believe me. They're going to think that I'm crazy, that there's something else going on. Even her friends always try to come up with logical conclusions like, oh, maybe it's a hacker. Maybe a hacker put something in a computer program, it got on your computer, that's what happened. Or some other type of explanation, a faulty game or something. But now it's getting too much that Jen's like, yo, Zippy is coming after us. He wants to get rid of me. He wants to get rid of my family because I refuse to play with them. And it's hinted that maybe her little brother Brian might be getting influenced by Zippy. And as the story continues, that becomes quite disturbing. There is some just flat out crazy violent stuff that happens later that gets solved. There's a whole like smart house going on demon timing kind of scene in the climax. And they have to put all their heads together, the family, her friends, and Brian, to try to figure out how they can get rid of Zippy and basically save their family, and how they can actually deal with an electropath who's intangible, has a wide range of things it can do, and really no way to prove to anybody that he exists. So a very sinister villain, and they have to figure out a way to solve that. So yeah, and you also get some really good emotional scenes with Jen and her brother and her family over this traumatic experience. So that's essentially Killer Computer. I'm going to keep it vague for what happens later on in the book, in the climax and the ending, just so you can pick it up, read it for yourself if you get your hands on this, and experience the greatness of this, basically the best Goosebumps knockoff book out there, and a Hall of Fame, one of the best kids horror books out there. First and foremost, as I take a sip of this book, Killer Computer, it feels like, on similar lines to a Goosebumps book, to a Goosebumps TV show episode, and particularly to me, felt a lot like an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode if you were to watch it. But this is like that perfected. Like, this is up there with some of the best Goosebumps books. It's better than a lot of Goosebumps books that are out there. Up there with the best Goosebumps episodes, better than a lot of Goosebumps episodes. And this book is better than pretty much anything in Are You Afraid of the Dark, outside of like maybe 2 episodes, or maybe 3 if I were to give credit. This thing is better than like 98% of that show. So it feels like the formula, the stuff that you would see in Goosebumps, in Are You Afraid of the Dark, these heavy hitter kids horror series that we all recognize and love for how iconic they are. But it feels like that perfected. It feels like it did not waste a beat. It knew what it was doing. It takes some risk. It's a lot darker and more disturbing. It has emotional weight to it. Jen as a main character is fantastic. She's a really relatable main character in a similar vein to like Carly Beth. Not to Carly Beth's level of relatability, because that's involving, being scared, but Jen becomes very desperate. She has a lot of emotional vulnerability. There's some really messed up stuff that happens with her brother and what Zippy tries to do to her family. And seeing how Jen deals with that, how she tries to take a more mature approach, not do the you gotta believe me stuff, and instead try to solve it, try to consult as many people as she can in her life to figure out what she should do. And the way that she learns, I gotta stop being so, she has points in this book where she realizes that she's distancing Brian away from her, and maybe it's her fault that he's acting up in a way because she's so harsh on him, she's so mean to him. She should be a lot more loving towards him, a lot more affectionate, and this distancing might have played a big part into why he's acting up and potentially how Zippy plays a role within all of this drama and conflict. You got some really fantastically written scenes between her brother and her, which nearly brought a tear to my eye. I'm not going to lie. It was some really heartfelt and powerful stuff. The only emotional scene that I've read in kids' horror that was equivalent to that would be like the scene in I Am Your Evil Twin between the cousins. If you guys know about that scene in the book, that's a really emotional scene. Stuff like that is in this book. So if you like books with more emotional grasp, it really makes you feel something, this book is going to do that for you. And again, it's very disturbing and creepy. Zippy is a sinister villain. He is a really creepy, sinister villain. This idea of this cartoon, Cuphead type of cartoony figure face on a screen that's going, "Hi, my name is Zippy. I want to play with you. Be my friend." And he slowly starts to spaz and become psychotic. That scene where he was spazzing and going crazy and spitting like 900 words like a second on that Google Doc, where he was just spazzing out and going, "I hate you. You're not my friend. You don't like me. You want to do it. I'm going to mess up your family. I'm going to destroy your family. I'm going to delete your brother. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I hate you, Sunflower." It was like, yo, this dude was like crashing out. He was going insane. Ballistical. He was going ballistical on Jen. And I was like, yo, this dude is creepy. He goes from this childlike innocent figure to all of a sudden spazzing out and going wild. So very sinister. The way he controls the house, turning on the garbage disposal while the mom's hand is inside of there, that's really messed up. What could have happened to her? Electrocuting people, manipulating the alarm system and the lights and stuff and the TV screens, and even some mild form of hypnosis utilizing lights and sounds and entering some of his consciousness into people, which is ironically similar to like the tale of the virtual pets from Are You Afraid of the Dark season 6. And that episode is absolutely horrendous. That episode is doggy doo-doo water, hippo dung. This is leagues above that. This is taking that concept and making it leagues better than the execution in that show. So this is overall a really fantastic book, and I suggest that all of you pick it up and read it because I think you're going to be in for one hell of a journey. Now, I'm not going to give this a perfect score because there were a few nitpick things that did sort of pile up as the book went on. Some of the dialogue is very dated, of course, and I gave it a pass because it's 1996. They're new to computers. But you got stuff like April saying, they said like the computer has like Doug says the computer has a virus on it maybe, and she's like, "A virus? Computers can get sick?" Like, and it's confirmed she's being serious. She's not doing a joke. She's like, "Computers can get sick. Is there like some medicine you can give or soup you can give?" And then Mark's like, "Not that kind of virus, dummy." And it's like, that was a bit cringe. I was like, all right, Jesus. And like, Doug says that, oh yeah, hackers are these like all-star guys on computers. Like, I want to grow up and be the best hacker in the world. I get it, but it's a little cringe. And like, I think at one point April says that like a hacker is a chopper and whatever. It says a bunch of weird stuff that I get the time period, but it kind of builds up over time. And towards the climax of the book, you see that April, starts all of a sudden like popping off on Doug. And it's like, dude, Doug is a computer genius. He's giving advice to you guys to deal with a literal sentient electropath. This is not something that anybody could prepare for. Even the United States government seeing this shit would be, they'd be sweating, yo. Excuse my language, but they would be sweating. They'd be like, yo, the aura on Zippy is nandeska, nani. Like, they would be like, yo, spazzing out a little bit if this happened, to more professional people. These are just some kids. So the fact that Doug is helping you guys out as much as he is and giving ideas, and the fact that April just starts trashing on him way more in the climax of the book is just like, why? It's like, I know Jen calls her out and tells her like, yeah, why are you being so harsh on Doug? But it just felt random, just kind of took away from April's character. And then Mark has like a really goofy moment where it's like they're calling him to help out with Zippy, and he's like, but I'm watching my favorite show, Attack of the Star Crusaders. I gotta find out who the killer is. It's like, dude, you and your friends have been helping out Jen this whole story. How do you not realize this is something serious? And then there's like a piece of dialogue. Let me see if I can find that piece of dialogue. I don't normally go back to the book during these reviews, but there was a piece of really goofy dialogue that I was like, hey, yo, like, what was going on here? Let me see if I can find it. This might be a little bit. Yeah, like, April starts saying, like, hey, Mr. Computer. Oh, right here. He said, oh, yeah, there's a way to get rid of him for good. And it's like, only, are you planning on stopping there? Well, we'll see. It's just that, and he's like thinking, you know, Doug is thinking. He's thinking, Mark. Think, Mark, think. It's not Mark. Mark is a different character, but think, Doug, think. And she's like, hey, Mr. Computer Whiz, do words a matter of life or death mean anything to you? Because that's what it is. So if there is really a big idea in that big, busy brain of yours, you better speak up. It's like, why are you snapping? He's trying to help you. And it was just really weird. And then I'm trying to find that scene. Picking up the phone. What did they say to Doug? Oh, yeah, like he shows up and he's like, Doug's here and he thinks he could use your electromagnet with Zippy. He's like, oh, yeah, sure, I guess. He's like, but what? We need your magnet right now. Like, she's screaming to him like, yo, Zippy is doing some shit to us. We need you right now. And he's like, you know, it could totally destroy your computer, don't you? Yeah, so that's what I was going to say, that there is parts in this like book where like they know that Zippy is this imminent threat, and then all of a sudden they start worrying about their computer getting wiped or losing the memory. It's like, with all the stuff you guys have been through and seen, you're still worrying about the computer. Even the dad has to step in and be like, yo, I'll buy a new computer, bro. Like, don't worry about it. So those things built up a little bit, but it didn't detract anything big from the book. I'd give this a 9.8 out of 10. This is a near perfect Goosebumps knockoff book, a near perfect kids horror book. I do like Billy Baker's Dog Won't Stay Buried more, but I'll do a caveat. I'll say this is the best kids horror, you know, Goosebumps knockoff book, because this actually does feel like a Goosebumps story. This actually does feel like an Are You Afraid of the Dark story episode in a way. So this is the best Goosebumps knockoff because it actually feels like that. Billy Baker's Dog Won't Stay Buried is one of the best kids horror books I've ever read, if not the best kids horror book I've read. But that one, to me, doesn't really feel like Goosebumps or Are You Afraid of the Dark. It felt like a miniature movie that you were watching. So I'll do that as a caveat. So Killer Computer by Bob Hirschfield is the best Goosebumps knockoff book that I've read thus far. And I suspect it might be up there with the best Goosebumps knockoff book of all time. So 9.8 out of 10, near perfect. 100% recommend you guys check it out. And the fact that, you know, George Edward Stanley writes the next book, which is labeled as one of the worst books in Spinetinglers and kids horror, and he wrote Billy Baker's Dog Won't Stay Buried, and it is a dog story, a pet story. So yeah, this book series has a lot of variability, but this one is a smash hit. So that's all I got for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please consider these 3 things. Hit that subscribe button down below. It's a free way to support me. Motivates me to pump out more content. Hit that like button down below and share this video around, as well as put your comments down below. What do you think about Killer Computer? Have you read this book before? Have you not read it and you're planning to read it? You know, what is, in your opinion, one of the best Goosebumps knockoff books